Hello everyone. I've got another book video for you today. So here in Germany it's quite common to read crime novels or murder mysteries while being on vacation, or buying a local murder mystery to reminisce later on about said vacation. And last year, just around this time in autumn, I went to Wales, to Pembrokeshire to be exact, and in Haverfordwest. I picked up some nice little crime stories, which are these. The first one is The Sixth Lie by Sarah Ward. I made some notes about what I want to say about it. It is a gripping thriller set in the small town of St. David's, with a female protagonist that is not going to stop asking questions until all lies are revealed and all truths lie open. And then the second one is this one, Those Who Know by Alis Hawkins. It's a 19th century murder mystery set in a small town, or rather rural Wales, I'd say. It deals not only with revealing the truth behind the alleged murder, but it also talks a lot about the history of Wales, as well as how certain societal aspects were, like how people with disabilities were treated. Obviously, I love both of these, but for quite different reasons, and I will get into that in a minute. So if you'd like to find out what I thought about these books, keep watching, and yeah, let's get right into it. So, The Sixth Lie by Sarah Ward was the one book that I read last year where I obviously couldn't find my notes on, naturally. Probably because I was on vacation, and chances are I didn't take any notes, which is like me. But I will just talk about what I can remember about the book and what I liked, and just know that it's left a very positive feeling in me. Not atmosphere-wise, but like, just this was quite a good murder mystery thriller. So first of all, the scenery Ward describes is breathtakingly gorgeous, like from the historic ruins of St. Non's Chapel to St. David's Cathedral, to the coast's rough cliffs, and also the wild sea. All of the places that she described, like I was reading this one while I was actually on vacation still in Wales, and I mostly got to reading it either in bed or when I was on the bus. And when I was in the bus, I could just look up and see the beautiful scenery of rural Wales, and it was so beautiful. The protagonist as well, she's just quite fascinating. She's determined to find out the truth. She does not shy away from danger. She's really brave. She is quite intelligent, but she still keeps her empathy, her humanity. And one aspect I really like about the protagonist is her relationship with her son. It's really emotional and sometimes really heartbreaking as well. So Wood definitely crafted Mallory Dawson quite well, and I did enjoy reading about her. The story was twisted, it was gripping, it ended with a proper bang. Like, the finale was really thrilling. Overall, it's really well written, and it's definitely a thriller that keeps one guessing until the very end. I would definitely recommend it, and so did the people on the back. And just a couple of minutes ago I read that Alis Hawkins wrote about it so satisfyingly compelling, which I do agree with, which already takes us to the second part of this video, the second review of this video, which is Those Who Know by Alis Hawkins. Now, some of you may be familiar with the series and you will notice, that is not part one. They didn't have it at the bookshop at the moment, which is fine. With sometimes it takes a moment to get into, which definitely was the case with this one, but murder mysteries are usually closed cases, and yes, you might be missing some of the backstory, which I felt in this one, but generally speaking, it's still a story that can be really enjoyed, even if one hasn't read the former parts of the book series. And with this one, it is the third part of the Tafy Valley Coroner series. And I will try to get into the other books, because this one was really good. I really enjoyed it. So as I was saying, it was quite a rough start for me, because I didn't know the characters. I didn't know how they related to each other, what types of character they were, what role they served. But because this one is written from two perspectives, John and Harry's, it was ultimately quite easy for me to get a feel for them. Being able to read their thoughts and getting to know their worries really made me care about them quite quickly. They're both definitely flawed, have to say that, which is positive. I love that. But ultimately they are likable protagonists that push the story forward at a steady pace. Harry and John are just a great team, and they support each other in many different ways, which I will get into later in this video. As for the secondary characters, they were crafted really well as well. Alis Hawkins was able to capture them in such a raw and unprettied way, and she also changed things up depending on what status the characters had. So with the more formal gentry, they used a bit more polished language, while the lower classes were just speaking either in Welsh, which is obviously translated in this work, but you could really feel how their language differs depending on their education and societal status. And one thing I really have to applaud Hawkins for is her depiction of disabled characters. Now, of course, we have, for one, most prominently, Harry Poppetloyd, which is the blind coroner, the main protagonist, I'd say, in the series. She really crafted him quite well. Despite having the disability and not being able to see properly, he is quite independent. With the help of devices, he can write with his own hands, he can write on his own, and he leads the interrogation of the suspects for the most part by himself. Yes, he does respond a bit to the body language of John, but for the most part he really is the key figure in these aspects. And then there's also the murder victim, Nicholas Rowland, the schoolteacher, who, despite having impaired hands and not being able to use them properly, he built up and managed a whole school for the village, which improved the education of the kids by so much, which is quite impressive, I think. And there are some other characters as well that are disabled, but I'm not getting into that right now. I think it's already quite well depicts on why I like the representation of the disabled characters. They're so independent, and yes, there are still stigmata that they face from the society and the other people in the village, but ultimately it's well done. I liked it. So apart from how disabled people are treated, the novel also deals with some other certain aspects of culture back then. For example, with how Welsh language was seen and Welsh culture. And I did have a little excerpt here, which I will try to read for you, and it will speak for itself. So this is on page 45 and 55, and it reads: "They decided that speaking Welsh was holding the whole nation back. Worse, it was encouraging backward thinking and immorality. According to their report, our mothers were women of low morals who passed on the sinful ways of thinking to their children through our mother tongue, and until our language was replaced by English and our ways amended by education and proper, decent language, we'd never prosper, and Wales would be a festering sore on the western edge of Her Majesty's dominions." It just speaks for itself, I think. And there are also other parts in this book that are similar to this, where she just, through her characters, her criticism of the society back then, speak. The novel also depicts how other marginalized groups were depicted back then, but that would include a massive spoiler, so I'm gonna let you figure that one out on your own. Apart from that, talking about the style of writing, I think it was quite well written. She managed to get the perfect balance between easy to understand language, which just lets one fall into the story, and more advanced word choices and grammar when it's really necessary. So I really like that. The way Hawkins described the different places really felt like I was in them. For example, the Black Lion, which is an inn where some quite important story aspects take place, or also just the fields on the outskirts of Llandwy Brefi, which I hope I pronounced it right, I'm not sure. I did try to learn a bit of Wales, but I'm definitely not a native speaker. I could not figure out who the murderer was until the very end, or almost the very end, so really kept one thinking and guessing. It's definitely not a book that I read front to back. It wasn't deeply thrilling or anything like that, but I feel like the atmosphere of suspense it built up was quite well, and while it's not as thrilling as some other authors might be, it's not particularly gory or bloody or anything like that. I feel like it was still really interesting and fascinating to read. And it definitely made me want to finish this book, because I wanted to know who did it and what their motives were. The only thing that I would criticize about it is the ending, which, if you haven't read it, maybe don't watch this part. It's kind of dissatisfactory in my opinion. Like, yes, Ruth and Anne being able to escape the village with its sexist or period appropriate sexist views, that's fine and I'm happy for them, but I'm not really mad, but I feel like it's sort of frustrating that Shonigor has to spend 7 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, especially considering that Harry and John had figured out everything, and Ruth and Anne were out of the village's reach by this point. They could have just come forward with the truth and told everyone what they were really doing and why Nicholas Rowland died, who did it, and what their motive was. It could have just come forward. I mean, yes, it probably would have put a more negative image on their families, but ultimately Ruth and Anne, who would have really suffered from this kind of truth, they were gone. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here, so please let me know in the comments if you've read this one and have a different opinion, what you think, but I don't know, I didn't like the ending. The rest was really good though. I would still recommend this a lot. Now, obviously this is only my second video, so you guys don't really know me, but I know myself, and I know that I would never be able to leave the bookshop, which is, by the way, the Victoria bookshop in Haverfordwest. Such a lovely bookshop, really nice selection, and really kind and helpful and knowledgeable booksellers that work there. I know myself, and I know that I wouldn't have been able to leave with only 2 books, so I also got this one, which is The Engine House by Rhys Dillon. I haven't read it yet. I will probably do it in a couple of weeks when I get around to. I've just started uni, so it's kind of hard to get in private reading at the moment. But if you'd like to know how I like this one and what I think about it once I finished it, do subscribe. And if you have another opinion about the other 2, if you disagree, agree with me, just let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to hear that. So that's it from me for today. I hope you have a nice day, and bye.